And a good spiritual morning to you once again. I'm Father Cosmas. Thanks for joining me today for a quick chat and, of course, our morning cup of coffee. And Christ has risen, Christos Anesti once again. This past Sunday, we remembered the myrrh bearers, right? Those women that are the first to arrive at the empty tomb and to receive the good news of the resurrection. So I thought this week we would talk a little bit about women and the importance of women and their role in the life of the church. It's a week of women, right? On May 1st, we remembered Saint Tamara of Georgia, or Tamara of Georgia, on May 1st every year. On May 5th, tomorrow, we remember Saint Irene, the great martyr. And so there's all these amazing stories of these amazing, powerful, wonderful women as figures in the church. And so I thought it's so important for us to touch on that, because I think we can sort of gloss over it, and then we get this sort of sense of inequality. Well, women are oppressed in the church. Well, I mean, I know that there are people that think that women are oppressed in every aspect of society, and the church is no different. The church has oppressed women all these years. The reality is that's just not true. And you see that from the very beginning when you look at the myrrh bearers. The myrrh bearers are the women that are bringing the myrrh, literally, for the burial, and they arrive to the tomb. And what happens? I mean, they are the first ones to receive the good news of the resurrection. It's the angel that speaks to them, speaks to Mary, speaks to them and tells them the good news about Christ's resurrection. And then they go and then they give the good news to the apostles. And at some point, the apostles, right, they're having a hard time with it. And one of the Gospels says that these words seem to them an idle tale, right? They don't really believe. And so it's an amazing thing to think about the incredible importance and the power and the role of women in the church from the very beginning. They're the last ones there at the crucifixion, the first ones there at the tomb to receive the good news of the resurrection. That's not an accident. And as we think about women throughout the centuries, you think about all these amazing figures, like I mentioned, St. Irene and St. Tamara that we remember this week. Amazingly powerful figures. Go and read their life stories, especially St. Tamara of Georgia. Most people are not familiar with. Of course, St. Irene, the great martyr. And think about just the amazing role that women can have in the life of our church. And we should support that role. And we should say that that role is equally as important as what any man is doing or what the men are doing in the life of the church, because it comes down to the nuts and bolts of day-to-day operations. And when you go to any parish, go to any Greek Orthodox parish, and try to find out who's really there teaching the kids, who is really there taking care of the church, who is there worrying about the services, who is there feeding the poor and taking care of those who are in need, you're going to find over and over and over again, it's the women that are the backbone of the ministry of the church. And I don't mean to dismiss the guys. The guys, of course, have their role. But that's the point. We each have a role. And one role is not more or valuable or more or less important than the other. But we should celebrate the roles that we do have and say, well, what can I do? This I can offer. And so I'm going to offer as much as I possibly can. Look at the gifts that God has blessed you with and say, okay, I can use those gifts and I'm going to offer those back as my stewardship to support the life of the church. And women are doing that, and they're doing an amazing job at it. And we should continue to encourage that. And we should encourage our young women to be able to do that. Encourage the young ladies to know, hey, you can have an incredibly important role in the life of the church. Let us show you how and what an impact you can have. No matter what we're talking about, from the ministries to the charitable endeavors to the worship services, there's all these things that you can do. And we need you to do that. And God needs you to do that. He's given you these gifts. He wants you to use them and give them back. And so I think the week of the myrrh bearers, we celebrate the role of women in the church. And we should encourage the next generation to embrace that role, not to sort of shun it and not to feel oppressed, but to say, no, look I've got the same rights as everybody else, and I can offer my gifts back to God. And God welcomes that and receives it, and the church needs it. So I'm going to be able to do that and do it joyfully. And I'm going to do that each and every day. Amen.